All right, so do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about your business and how exactly you got into it?
Yeah, so I started Sun Theory 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. Pretty much before that, I bought a ton of candles. I That was just a thing I always had to have money for, was to buy candles. But I would always save the jars they came in because I was like, I hate throwing these away. These are perfectly useful jars. Um, and pretty much from there, like one, I was spending a lot of money on candles. So I was like, I wonder if I could do this myself. Two, I was like, I want to repurpose all these jars. I'd hate throwing them away. It feels wasteful. I know they could have a second life. So that's kind of how it started. I just started experimenting on my own, making my own candles. I started thrifting and just using vessels that I found at thrift stores. Eventually, people started like donating stuff to me to reuse. I started doing like a refill program with Sun Theory where people can bring their vessels back to me. I refill them for like a lower cost, which I just love doing because people love the vessels they get, so they can keep giving them a new life over and over again. Yeah, and that's pretty much how it started. Was just I wanted to reuse materials and save some money on making candles.
Yeah, that's so cool because I know I have candles as well, and I always find myself like wondering like what to do with them after,
Yeah,
which is very frustrating. But
yeah.
so on your website, you were talking about how you repurpose old candles. What is exactly the process of that, and how can like people participate in this?
Yeah, so I try to make it really easy for people who want to get new candles and to use the refill program. So I'll do all the cleaning of the candles because it can be tricky to get like old wax out of it. With soy wax, which is what I use, it's super easy to clean out. You pretty much just need to like pour hot water on it, get it loosened up, and it'll like scoop right out. But other types of wax, like paraffin wax, which is most common in like store-bought candles, is really annoying to get out. So I usually do that all myself just to help people because I know that can be a frustrating part of it. Just make it as easy as possible.
Wonderful. Um, and so my next question is actually about like the soy and like what products you use. And it was like, um, what do you think, why do you think sustainability is important? And actually, like, first of all, how did you get into sustainability and how did you research all your products that you use?
Yeah, I love that question. So I definitely did a lot of research on it because I knew from the beginning I wanted to reuse materials such as like vessels. But with doing that, I also wanted to make sure all the ingredients I was using was also good for the environment, good for people, just so I wasn't like helping in one area and then like hurting in another. So a lot of it was just research. I mean, the internet is amazing. I read a lot. It was pretty easy to narrow down that I wanted to use soy wax. It's the most natural. It doesn't release, and the kind of soy wax I use is 100% soy. I don't use any additives. So it's made from soybeans and from sourced from the US. Um, so nothing harmful gets emitted into the air from the wax. With the oils, I also wanted to make sure I was using things that were safe for everybody, nothing that was going to be polluting the air. I started originally with just using pure essential oils. I did end up switching more to a mixture of the two, essential oils and fragrance oils. And the reason for that is pure essential oils get super expensive when you're trying to scale a business. Um, and then I did more research and I found that not all fragrance oils are bad. There's definitely certain ones that are, but there are also ones that are just like in everything we use, like has chemicals in it. Doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but you want to make sure you're getting the ones that are good.
I think you already touched upon this, but my next question was, did you face any challenges and what were they? And if you were aware of them, or was it just kind of like you were thrown head on?
Just like in starting the business.
Yes, in starting and like researching products, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of trial and error, not just like with starting a new business, but with making a product like that. So, I mean, I did a lot of testing in the beginning. I mean, with candle making, it is kind of a science. So I definitely had some crazy candles that came out in the beginning. Um, But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error and just doing the research and kind of sticking with it. I guess just being more like committed, I guess, to researching and finding a solution and just grinding it out.
Yeah. So then, could you give an example of what was your craziest candle then?
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, when I first started making, I kind of went in blindly. I was like, I get the gist. You melt the wax, you add oil, you pour it. Um,
Yeah.
so they would just be like, I pretty much you have to pour candles at an exact temperature. You mix in the oils at an exact temperature. You have to blend everything perfectly. I mean, the temperature is kind of the biggest thing. So when I was pouring it like willy nilly, they would have like holes in them. The scent wouldn't like throw as well. It's, I mean, a big science experiment. So just kind of finding, and also just the crazy vessels I would find and then realize they weren't a good fit. Just if they were a little wonky in shape, getting it to burn evenly and perfectly. But yeah, a lot of trial and error.
So besides your business, is there anything else in your personal life that you do in terms of sustainability, or is it mainly just the candle business?
Yeah, so I try to be and live a pretty sustainable life. I do compost through Enrich Compost. I don't know if you guys have seen them on Instagram, but local company that does it really all for you, makes it so easy to compost. Um, Otherwise, I try to thrift a lot of clothing. And if I'm not thrifting it, then I like to find really sustainable companies, either local, like small businesses, or just companies that use like fairly thoughtful processes and aren't exploiting labor and materials, stuff like that. Those are probably the two biggest things I try to make sure I do in my day to day life.
And do you have any advice specifically for kids in high school on what they can be doing just to be more sustainable in general?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing is not feeling like you have to be perfect with it. Like for a while, I thought like I needed to only thrift my clothes and only do X, Y, and Z, never use plastic. But that it's hard to do, and I think that sets an unrealistic expectation. So people are like, I can't do that, so I'm just not going to try. I think just doing the little things, like if you have an option to do a more sustainable thing, like just bringing your grocery, like reusable bags to the grocery store. Like it's the little stuff that adds up, and you just don't have to be perfect at it, but as long as you try.
It's interesting that you say that because the goal of our capstone is to show like high school students that sustainability isn't necessarily these big actions, but
Yeah.
small actions that count and can help. And we've been trying to do that with like these talks and showing our blog and like these simple like 5-minute hacks that you can do that don't seem helpful, but in reality are.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad that you guys are spreading that awareness too.
Thank you. Um, Julia, do you have any questions or do you have any like closing statements that you want to say? Anything that we haven't really touched on that you would like to share?
I don't have any more questions. So if you just want to like kind of shout out your business, tell people where they can go and how they can, participate in it.
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is at sun.theory. My website is just suntheoryco.com. If anyone's interested in doing the refill program, all the information's on my website. Pretty much I can walk you through the whole process if people have questions on it, but it's definitely my favorite thing I do is refilling the candles. So if anyone wants to just, if they have empty mugs they don't use anymore, random household things, I'm happy to fill them.
We will let them know.
Sounds good.